So depending on the model you have, you may have to take your Samba apart to add the Ethernet card, and this one, removing these sides made it a lot easier to put it back together. So you take the cards all the way out, and this is the Ethernet card on the bottom. It snaps into the bottom. This is the connection point. Snaps together. There's nothing holding those together but that connection until you set them back in to here. I think it was 2 screws I had to take out. It was just 2. Is here and here. There's only a couple screws that hold it in, and then you reinstall the plastic sides and you install the piece over this. It kind of helps hold it together. To remote view of VisiLogic Samba with the Ethernet card installed in it. So you'll first thing you'll need to do is go to unitronicsplc.com website and go to software, VisiLogic, to download software utilities and remote operator. So you want to download this and install it. And the next thing in your program, your VisiLogic program, you need a couple of lines of code. Let's see if we can get them up over here. So in VisiLogic, you'll need to add this system bit, which is just a normally open looking contact. And when you drill down to it, it shows you SB2, which is system bit 2. Display's kind of goofy here. SB2, which means it will, the documentation here, it's a power up bit. It only runs the very first time you power on the PLC. On the first scan, it runs this rung. It's the only time it needs to run. But it's also important to remember, if you make any changes on this line, you need to do when you download, you need to download a stop download reset in order to rerun this line. If you just do a regular download, it will never run this line again. If you do a stop download reset, it will run the line. And so these blocks, with this open contact, but I set it as SB2, system bit 2, and then I dragged these blocks over here from the COM selection. So the first one is the PLC name. So you just can name it whatever you want. It's case sensitive, so I just call it S35 or Samba 35 direct string, and you say OK. The next one I dragged over was this TCP/IP card init, and that's where you set the IP address, subnet mask, and the gateway. And the last thing you set is which socket you're going to use. So you can either use for TCP, the standard setup is socket 1 and socket 3. So socket 1 TCP, and it's 2256. And you're setting this up as a slave device. And if that socket were busy, it could be, so you could set this up as socket 3 2257 also works. So we're going to be connected with your regular USB or with the RJ12 plug at this point if you have to install the Ethernet card. And so you would connect and go ahead and download it with your regular connection method. Then next time you're able to connect to it, you would be able to change it from serial to TCP call, and you do have to use the name that you chose up here for the name here, and you set up this you need to remember the IP address that you put in up here, so 192.168.50.68, and you have to remember which socket it was on, so the socket and port address is here, and you do have to do name here. Again, it's case sensitive, so you would say OK to that. And then if you're in call, you have these two things set up, and you do get OPLC information, it should connect. So you have to be careful and not have the remote access running. I tried to connect to it, and it wouldn't connect because that socket was already attached to by the remote. So let's try it again. Go to comms. It's TCP call. The name's correct. Already should be set up. If I say get PLC, it should find it. It did this time. So it did download the correct Ethernet settings, and now it's talking to it. But if you have anything else that's already talking on that port, this won't do it. It'll lock you up. That's good. And so just to be able to see that we're doing something, I must have made two screens on the display. So here's the first screen. I just put the name and the IP so we remember it, and if you press this button it should take you to the second screen, which is just a blank screen. You press that again, it takes you back. So let's look and see if this works. So same thing, I'm going to get out of this so I'm not connected to that port anymore. So close VisiLogic. And then we downloaded the remote operator. So let me open that. So here's remote operator, and you're able to add PLCs here and rename them as well. So you would start off by adding a PLC, and you would go into it, which we'll do in a second. You should be able to delete these off as well. So you would right click it and rename it. In this case, I can open the one that I already did, or we can just rename it. Rename. I'm going to call it this Samba S35. And then over here, this is kind of the connection settings that we need to give it the correct IP address. So it's on serial to start with. We're going to do the Ethernet call, and it was 50.68, I believe. It's the IP address. The port is correct already for socket 1. It's TCP protocol. We do have to put the name in here. It was S35. And if this is all correct and I do check connection, it'll give us it'll give us the information. So it did connect to it. It was able to read the model, and we know we have a good connection now. So we say okay, connection's established. You could save this at this point. Now to use it, you basically just hit this run button. We're selected on the PLC we don't want to connect to. If there were multiples, you would select the one you want. You hit run, so it should go out and it's talking to. We're seeing the screens that we just built in VisiLogic. So we're seeing them on the PLC. And if I press this button, it takes me to the second screen, which there's nothing on it. If I press this again, it takes me back. So it's pretty easy to use, pretty simple to set up. You do have to be careful and not have this running while you're trying to use VisiLogic, because it will take the socket and use it. I exit out of here. Go back. One other thing I want to show you real quick. In VisiLogic was I want to show you the navigation from screen to screen. So this was the start screen, and we wanted this button to move us to the next screen. So if I double click that button and I go in here to assign that button a bit, I'm going to assign it to MB 100, and you can put a description there. So I want it to take me to the next screen when MB 100 is made. So you see under this, in the HMI, under the particular screen you're on, you have links. So what it is, in links, I said, typed in MB100, description came up, and what do I want it to do? I want it to load a screen. I want to load next screen. And so now when you push the button on the HMI, you're changing the state of MB100 or 101, and it navigates you to the next screen. So if I look at the second screen here, look at this. If you press the button, MB101, it's gonna change the state. If we look on the links on this page, on the screen rather, MB101 will take you to the startup screen, so it navigates you back to the startup screen. That's just one way to navigate through the screens.